Hello, my name is Carrie Alvarenga, and I am presenting the disease-causing organism Legionella. Legionella is a genus of bacteria that is widespread in freshwater sources worldwide, and they are facultative intercellular parasites of paramecium and amoeba. And generally, they're harmless to humans and to most animals, except for under very specific conditions. When freshwater that's infested with Legionella is aerosolized into droplets that are small enough to enter the alveoli of human lungs, the bacteria are able to parasitize the alveolar macrophages that ingest them as part of the innate immune response, because those macrophages are very similar to freshwater amoeba. So if Legionella is so widespread, why doesn't everyone get it? Why aren't we all sick with it? So first, natural water sources rarely produce water droplets that are small enough to make it all the way into our alveoli. And then in most cases of legionellosis, they're associated with man-made water systems like pools and hot tubs, decorative water fountains, cooling towers, things like that. Second, exposure alone is not a sufficient cause. Case studies are showing that young, healthy people are really not at risk. So we see it more in men, in people who are 50, people with a history of smoking or COPD, cancer, or people who are immune suppressed. Those are at most risk. It also shows up periodically in hospitals as like an acquired thing after surgeries. So when a susceptible individual is exposed to Legionella, our alveolar macrophages phagocytize them, and then the bacteria are able to disrupt the macrophage's ability to merge their lysosomes with the bacteria containing vacuole, and they're using a .ICM type 4 secretion system when they do that. Then they are able to prolifically reproduce inside of this macrophage where they're protected from the rest of the immune system. And then they trigger cell lysis, and that bursts the cell open, and they're able to continue that cycle in other macrophages. So as you can imagine, this process is not really without effect on the infected person. There is an inflammatory response in the lungs, which manifests as one of two clinical syndromes. Pontiac fever is the mild, self-limiting version. It's very similar to the flu symptom-wise. It has a short incubation period up to 48 hours, and it resolves on its own usually within 2 to 6 days. There's a more severe syndrome that's called Legionnaire's disease. It has a longer 2 to 10-day incubation period. Early symptoms are very similar. Same fever, chills, muscle aches as Pontiac fever, but it worsens into pneumonia usually within the first week. Both symptoms can also experience like headache, appetite loss, fatigue. Occasionally they have diarrhea. And if left untreated, Legionnaire's disease will cause lasting respiratory organ damage and even death. With treatment, there's about a 10% death rate for Legionnaire's disease. Diagnosing legionellosis can be kind of difficult since the symptoms are so very generalized. There's not like a diagnostic indicator for this. Pontiac fever particularly is probably very, very underdiagnosed because it's so symptom to things like the flu, and people probably self-treat and never get tested for it. So during an unexplained outbreak of community-acquired pneumonia, healthcare providers should be looking for things like shared exposure points at water parks or resorts or cruise ships, or possibly through industrial work. And in suspected cases, there's a urine antigen test that's available for the most common species of Legionella, the Legionella pneumophila, and then that's serogroup 1. A positive result to that's usually pretty positive, but a negative result does not rule out legionellosis because that test is only really going to indicate that first type of Legionella. So if doctors still suspect legionellosis, what they usually are encouraged to do is go ahead and take a sputum sample, start treating with antibiotics, and then send that culture off, and usually takes several days to come back for confirmation. Legionellosis is relatively a new human disease. It was discovered in 1976 following an outbreak among attendees of the American Legion Convention in Philadelphia. It was a very hot summer, and the hotel's air conditioning system had become infested with Legionella, and then it proceeded to kind of spread it to everybody susceptible in attendance. Samples of earlier outbreaks were later tested, and they were confirmed to also be positive for Legionella, so it's probably dating back to about the turn of the 20th century. The graph is a little bit difficult to see, but there were approximately 1,000 cases of Legionellosis that were confirmed in the U.S. in the year 2000. By 2018, the incidence rate had climbed up to closer to 10,000 cases, and it's kind of debatable if this is actually reflective of an increase in case numbers or just diagnostic capabilities. One possible explanation for an increase in case numbers is that plumbing infrastructure is aging, and as the biofilms build up in the pipes, it sort of traps Legionella. Any kind of plumbing work or disturbance, I guess, releases all of those bacteria from the biofilm, and it creates a new outbreak, or it can create a new outbreak. Primary prevention for Legionella usually revolves around maintaining water systems at optimal temperatures outside of Legionella's range for things like hot tubs and pools. It also means monitoring and treating for Legionella. Some systems can periodically superheat. So secondary prevention really more revolves around utilizing those diagnostic tests. So if one of the local monitoring systems has detected Legionella, doctors should test for Legionella for people who present with pneumonia. And then tertiary prevention is going to be prophylactic antibiotic treatment while waiting diagnostic confirmation. Thank you.